Hi, I'm Tina Goodson. The topic of UFOs has always existed in shrouded controversy. Our understanding of sightings and experiences seems to fall outside the limits of known technology or comprehension. So naturally, the subject stimulates debate between believers and non-believers. Here at Open Minds, we believe greater truths can be discovered when individuals question and critically examine their beliefs and those of others. It is our mission to present those who wish to know with factual evidence so that they can make their own decisions. The Open Minds motto is, our knowledge as individuals and as a human race grows not through ignorance or stubbornness, but through keeping an open mind. It is in this objective manner that we believe opens us up to accelerated learning. So, what is accelerated learning and where do we start? All human beings naturally go through a cycle every time they learn something new. This is the accelerated learning cycle. When getting into a complex subject such as UFOs, being consciously aware of these phases helps learning become easier, faster, and more enjoyable. Accelerated learning helps us to move beyond the limiting beliefs and tap into our own inner wisdom and hidden potential. The first phase is preparation. Understanding how our brains function and creating a safe, positive environment is priority so that the second phase of connection can happen quickly. We also must find a way to bring attention to the moment, creating focus. For many, reading is relaxing, yet engaging enough to prepare the brain to receive new information. In this Open Minds interview, musician Tom DeLonge explains how he became interested in UFOs and gives some advice on how to move from preparation to connection.
I was walking to this library and I didn't read books at all. Then, in school I was like, books? Who wants to read books? I'm in skateboarding and stuff. So I'm like, well, if I have to read a book right now, I wonder if there's any weird UFO books. And I don't even know why that came to my attention. It was so odd and all I found was a book that had something about one UFO and the Loch Ness Monster. But either way, it was cool, and it was in my school library. And from that moment forward, it really sparked my interest. You just jump into a book and go, there's aliens running around New Mexico or something. You just kind of go, oh my, this is dumb, there's no way. You kind of have to you got to set yourself up to know that anything can happen, or a lot more can happen than you're used to. But I think you just got to, I tend to have people start there first. A great author that I think people can start with, kind of entry level, and this is no dig to the author because he's so fun, is Jim Marrs. Now Jim Marrs is really fun because he has a way to tackle these subjects that go really deep, but he puts them in a vocabulary that's really mainstream and easy to digest. So I remember about 10, 15 years ago or something, it was a long time ago, maybe not that long, but it was long. He came out with Rule by Secrecy. And Rule by Secrecy is a great book, and it's not all about UFOs, but what it gives you a taste for is how secrecy is kept and how people work in these little cabals within the government that you never thought would exist. And it's like a 3-day read, because once you get into it, you're like, oh my God, And the reason I start there is because there's a tiny, tiny bit about UFOs. There's a tiny, tiny bit about the kind of Zecharia Sitchin movement. There's a whole lot about how the government compartmentalizes stuff and some of the esoteric kind of happenings behind the scenes. So when you read that, it opens your mind to, okay, there's secrets that are possible. There's ancient kind of history that's antiquated that I might not know about, that's alternative to what I was taught in school. There's groups of people that do have a position of power in areas that I didn't even know exist. It kind of gives you these doors that open to all the other stuff.
However, many people do not read and would rather watch television or videos, which makes sense because the brain processes images faster than words. Being captured on film does enhance its credibility, but for some reason this does not always apply to UFOs. Robert Salas is a retired U.S. Air Force captain. He was present at Malmstrom Air Force Base in 1967 when nuclear missiles became non-operational immediately after guards reported UFOs above the facilities. We were able to interview him, and he shares with us how others can make the connection.
I think as a result of groups like MUFON and people coming out and speaking about this, Larry King, for example, supporting this issue, and he confided in me that he really does believe in this phenomenon, and that he wants to talk about it and get it open. So things like that help bring this issue into the realm of believability, whereas for so long a time it's been part of the laugh track.
The third phase is discovery. Sometimes it is our own belief system based on past experience that limits our learning capabilities. Tapping into our own inner knowledge and wisdom helps to overcome limiting beliefs. Once we create an objective mindset, we can listen and relate to the interpretations of individuals who have witnessed phenomena. One of the most well-known incidents was the alleged crash in Roswell, New Mexico. We have interviewed Jesse Marcel Jr. His father was the base intelligence officer at Roswell Army Airfield. As a first-hand witness, he was able to examine the wreckage and at the time was instructed by the Air Force not to speak about the incident.
Well, I knew they had a job, and their job was to keep this covered up. So I understand their meaning for that. Certainly I feel there should be full disclosure. I think people are ready to accept the fact that we're not alone. That we're sending probes into outer space ourselves. So why not others, more advanced than us coming here? But I think people need to know, and it would not cause any dramatic disturbance. I think they say, yeah, I already thought that. They said the only people who might be disturbed by this are really the right-wing fundamentalist religious people, because they believe we're all there is. But they have to accept the fact that we're not.
Now, whether you believe the Roswell incident was an extraterrestrial crash or not, it is certainly evident that Jesse Marcel Jr. witnessed something that has had a profound effect on him his entire life. The fourth phase of the accelerated learning cycle is activation, where we elaborate, assimilate, and implement the new information. In this phase, you can practice by participating in activities where you can use this new information. Ask yourself questions and find the answers. Watch documentaries, do some internet research, attend conferences, or socialize with others while you travel. James Fox is a documentarian and director who spoke at the Open Minds International UFO Congress earlier this year. He describes how he sees himself and explains how this activation phase contributed to the development of his films.
I think of myself as sort of Joe Public. I'm you guys, and I'm just trying to do something to get the word out because I feel like this is an incredibly significant story and that everyone has a right to know about what's going on. So my job, as I see it, is bridging the gap between mainstream disbelief and reality on the ground. So that's what I've tried to accomplish with my films. And I'm just trying to establish the fact that these things are real. Then we'll move on to the next step with mainstream. That's my objective. I say, if Earth was being visited, would you want to know? But then I started looking into it. And I realized when I scratched the surface, there was a lot more than meets the eye. There was a lot more going on than what we were being told. And the deeper I dug, the more I realized there's really actually something to this. And I was particularly impressed with military witnesses. Don't get me wrong, I think there's some incredible civilian cases, but the military, because I think these guys have everything to lose and nothing to gain by coming forward and telling these outlandish stories, and they're trained to know what takes place in aerospace and radar and all this other stuff. So I focus primarily on that.
The final phase is integration. This can be challenging as learning is literally a matter of creating new neural networks and new chemical reactions within the brain. Leslie Kane is an independent investigative journalist who has spent over 10 years studying the UFO phenomenon. Her book, UFOs, Generals, Pilots, and Government Officials Go on the Record, has served as a valuable learning tool because the book contains the type of material that breaks the barrier between what we think we know and actual scientific facts. She explains her experience in this interview.
Books are being provided to people in high places. Personally signed books are being hand-delivered to certain people. Because I have a network, of people that really support me. And John Podesta, of course, wrote the foreword to my book. I can't say a whole lot about it, but there are efforts being made to get to these people by using the book as a tool. And yes, people have come out of the woodwork too since the book came out. I mean, a congressional staffer, for instance, one congressional staffer whose boss is on the Science and Technology Committee of the House, contacted me, just sent me an email. We've had long discussions, and there are sort of people coming out now that really want to help. And the issue that we're dealing with is, of course, trying to get some kind of official recognition, acknowledgement somewhere. As I described in the book, I called it a government office or an agency, but it might just be one staff person, let's say in the Office of Science and Technology Policy at the White House, who incorporates this issue as part of the job that they have, if there's somebody that deals with space issues. We're trying to get through to the right people in the right places to just get that door opened. And I do have a whole network of people. Some of them were lined up before the book came out. Others have come to me since the book came out. And I'm just hoping that I'm going to be able to make an announcement at some point that we have somebody in the White House or somebody at NASA who is now going to include this as part of their job and is going to be a point person for this.
Dr. John B. Alexander is a retired U.S. Army colonel and has written on the state of UFO disclosure. His experiences have given him a unique perspective on the subject of UFOs.
Conversely, I think there's a real phenomenon. There are things that deserve to be studied. And the problem in interjecting the wild tales and things that are demonstrably false is that the opponents, or particularly debunkers, go in there and they pick on that and say this is symptomatic of the entire field. And my premise is really pretty simple, that what I think we need is to make this a viable area to be studied so that scientists can do this without risks to their career.
Around the world, different countries have agencies that are receiving reports and analyzing data, but there's not any type of international effort to combine all of the available information. UFO researchers and witnesses are only able to contribute information as it becomes available. So in order to achieve integration, there is a need for reliable information sources. Nick Pope worked for the British government's Ministry of Defense for 21 years. For decades, he witnessed the politics of government and military and how they view UFO phenomena.
I've just returned from Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, where I spoke at the Global Competitiveness Forum 2011. There was a panel discussion entitled Contact Learning from Outer Space, and the other panelists included Michio Kaku, the theoretical physicist, Jacques Vallée, Stanton Friedman. Now, Global Competitiveness Forum is very much modeled on the World Economic Forum in Davos. Now, of course, this was the Contact Learning from Outer Space session was just one session. Most of the rest were more business orientated. But in terms of taking the subject to senior people, be they Saudi royals, be they senior political figures, be they figures from the world of business, I mean, again, and business leaders, this is important. It is such a profound question. Are we alone or not in the universe? And with a bit more effort, a bit more engagement by the mainstream scientific community, a bit more money in the space program, in the SETI community, and we might get an answer. And I go back to the point. I don't think it will be quite as paradigm shattering as some people in the UFO community think. But my goodness, it will be interesting, and I think we should work towards it.
Daniel Sheehan is a constitutional attorney, educator, and speaker. In this interview, he shares his ideas on cultivating change so that this type of integration can become reality.
I'm perfectly willing to participate in getting as much put out to the American public as can effectively get put out, that we can get our hands on. And so what I'd like to have happen is have two parallel projects going on, have a citizen's investigation which meets the kind of criteria that Alexander, in the higher angels of his nature, is recommending that there be. Professional, responsible, not delusional, not driven by kind of fantasies, a professional, hard-nosed investigation of this thing. And at the same time, have this open skies ministry be going on to start preparing people philosophically and theologically, and identifying the public policy changes that need to be made, and mobilizing the people to demand those public policy changes, all predicated only upon the assumption that we now know they exist. Not that you've been concealing it all this time and you got the technology all squirreled away somewhere, where it becomes so confrontational and so potentially destructive of the authority of the governing forces that they won't let it happen. You see? So this is, I think, an extremely sophisticated potential resolution of this problem, in a certain sense, like circle work. Where you put people in a circle and they all put their stuff into the basket and something comes out that is different than any one of the people who sat down in the circle would have recommended. And yet it comes out and everybody says, hey, wow, that'll work.
By now, you're probably wondering, what is the purpose of all this? We believe collaboration aids learning, so we are working to create an environment free from ignorance, a place to observe different perspectives and learn from others in an objective manner. Being aware of different cycles we experience naturally raises our consciousness. We can use this elevated perception to build a new model of understanding within ourselves and with others. All good learning has a social base. We often learn more by interacting with peers than we learn by any other means. A genuine learning community is always better for learning than a collection of isolated individuals. So stay tuned to Open Minds as we continue to produce UFO news stories and bring noteworthy information about UFO investigations into light. Learning that is stressful and dreary cannot compare to learning that is relaxed and engaging. Whatever your learning style is, we hope our magazine, website, podcast, or YouTube channel can help you to enjoy learning. For OpenMinds.tv, I'm Tina Goodson.